Good morning, students. Today we will study about transverse mellitus. Um, Transverse mellitus, as the name itself says, mellitus, that is inflammation of myelin, that is the cord, spinal cord. Fine. So that is transverse. Transverse is the section, the whole section, the transverse layer or inflammation is transversely affecting the spinal cord. So it is an inflammation of the spinal cord which is transverse in position and along with the width of the spinal cord. So you understand it is an understand the terminology. Transverse mellitus, it is an inflammation of the spinal cord which is running transversely along with the width of the spinal cord. Now this inflammation is due to results in motor weakness, sensory weakness, autonomic dysfunction. So how we will define it, as it is an inflammatory disorder of spinal cord which is characterized by acute, subacute development of motor weakness, sensory impairment and autonomic dysfunction. So what is transverse mellitus? Transverse mellitus is basically an inflammation of the spinal cord which is along with the width of the spinal cord and which results in certain kind of acute and subacute development of motor and sensory and autonomic features. Fine. Now, if we see the epidemiology, we basically in epidemiology see how many persons are affected. We see that there are always 1 to 8 cases per million per year is the cases which are affected, and it is within all the age group. There is no gender bias here. Both males and females are equally affected, and even the children are affected here. Now, it is seen that it is post infectious stage, that is there will be an history of respiratory or GIT tract infection for within a period of 3 to 8 weeks. The person will say, I had a history of GIT infection, or I had a respiratory viral infection which resulted within 3 to 8 weeks. Other than this is, it can be a direct viral infection or direct viral invasion or at the level of the spinal cord can take place, or it can be an autoimmune disease. A person who is already suffering from multiple sclerosis or systemic lupus erythematosus condition, he develops with an autoimmune disease in which the body itself identifies the certain neurons as an antigen and develops antibody against it. So in this condition, it becomes an autoimmune disease. So there are major three reasons for transverse mellitus to develop. It can be post-infection, it can be direct invasion to the spinal cord, or it can be an autoimmune after a systemic autoimmune disease. This can happen. Now, the types of transverse mellitus are usually, we say it as a complete or an incomplete one. Now, complete is when this transverse section, whenever this transverse mellitus takes place, it involves 3 vertebral segments. 1, 2, 3, that is L1, L2, L3. 3 vertical segments are involved, and there will be symmetrical motor and sensory loss, and of course bladder loss is there, and central features are there. Cord features become. So there is said to be a complete lesion. It can be an incomplete lesion also, or incomplete inflammatory response. So when there is less than 3 vertebrae or vertebral segments are involved, and there are more over limited tracts are involved. We will discuss about this limited tracts. They incomplete is more over kind of a spinal cord syndromes. They represent as a cord syndromes. And usually incomplete loss of function takes place. There is no complete loss, whereas in complete, where there will be total loss of symmetrically both sides of the body, paraplegia presentation, tetraplegia presentation will be there, whereas in incomplete, there will be one side unilaterally, or there will be unilateral or contralateral presentation of sensory loss or motor loss will be there. Fine. So types of transverse mellitus: it is complete when 3 vertebral segments are there, central cord lesions are there, presentation, symmetrical decrease in motor and sensory function along with decrease in sphincter function takes place. Whereas incomplete, when the less than 3 vertebral columns or vertebral segments are involved, peripheral lesions are involved, limited to tracts, and incomplete loss of function takes place. Now, if we see this spinal cord lesions, we define this as acute partial transverse myelitis. In acute partial transverse myelitis, the term which we see is, we say this is because of post-infectious, para-infectious, and there will be asymmetrical lesion of course, if it is acute and partial, that is acute is it has developed very within hours, this has been developed, so we say it as an acute stage. Partial, the symptoms are not symmetrical, they are asymmetrical depending upon which tracts are being involved. So it is mild to moderate severity is there, and less than one or two only vertebral segments are involved, and the whole segment is not involved, three segments are not involved, and there is chances that there is some demyelination of lesions are signs of demyelination are seen, that is white matter lesions are seen in the MRI brain, and there are chances that the person is already suffering from a disease, autoimmune disease like multiple sclerosis or SLE. Fine. So acute partial transverse myelitis is post para-infectious. The person having an autoimmune disorder may suffer from it. It is a mild to moderate variety and asymmetrical type depending upon the tracts it is being involved, and it involves one or two vertebral segments. Whereas a long extensive transverse myelitis is when there will be symmetrical spinal cord lesions, and where three vertebral segments are involved. As I have already told you, segment transversely, three segments are involved in infection, and it will be of severe variety, and it is said to be there will be associated with these condition is associated with neuromyelitis optica condition spectrum disorder, where the infection or optic neuritis also takes place. Eye is also been affected. Fine. Now, if you can see the scan, you can see this white color, you can see discoloration. This is the infection which is happening in this two vertebra. Fine, you can see this in other vision. You can here also see white discoloration. The cord above and below is fine, and you can see the white discoloration. Now, I am using these terms cord syndromes. Let me just brush out what are cord syndromes. Now, basically, you understand if we see the transverse section of the cord, and we see that there is anterior horns, posterior horn, and there is gray matter as well as the white matter around, and then there are ascending and descending tracts which are there. Now, if a complete cord is involved, if I can show you this picture, if you will remember this, you remember this is a transverse section of a cord. Now, if we take this section and you see, there will be, you can see the gray matter, the white matter, anterior horn, posterior horn, and the little bit of tracts are also there. That is spinothalamic tract, anterior and lateral, and there is corticospinal tract. Then there is fasciculus cuneatus, fasciculus gracilis, which is responsible for joint position sense, 2-point discrimination sense, and they are at the level of dorsal horns. They are present. Now, what happens at the level of central cord? In central cord syndrome, that is when it will be symmetrical. That means both the side of the body will be involved, and symmetrically motor and sensory weakness will take place. If you can see for yourself, everything is been involved. The motor as well as sensory, all the tracts will be symmetrical. That is on the left side as well as right side, both the side will be equally affected. So symmetrical, there will be motor and sensory weakness will start. Whereas you can see anterior cord syndrome. In anterior cord syndrome, if this section is involved, what will be the kind of presentation will be there? The posterior columns are spared. The posterior column is spared. That is the joint position sense. Fasciculus cuneatus and fasciculus gracilis has been spared. So 2-point discrimination, joint position sense, proprioception will be spared, whereas there will be motor weakness, symmetrical motor weakness will be there, and as well as there will be pain and crude touch, pain and temperature, loss of pain and temperature will be there. Patient will also suffer from that. The patient can also have Brown-Séquard syndrome. Can you see where the hemisection of the cord takes place? In hemisection of the cord, what happens is, you can see there will be involvement of some ipsilateral features and some contralateral features. Now there will be ipsilateral loss, motor as well as sensory loss. Ipsilateral motor weakness will be there, as well as there will be ipsilateral pain and temperature loss will be there, whereas there will be contralateral loss of 2-point position sense, and there will be joint position sense will takes place. This is called ipsilateral and contralateral. Both features will be found in Brown-Sequard syndrome. Other than this, there is another thing which I have not shown over here, is cauda equina syndrome. This can also happen. The lesion or infection can be at the level of equina, where the tailbone is there. If you can remember, cauda equina is, the term is when the meninges, the pia mater, basically, it ends at the level of L1, L2 vertebra. It is called as phylum terminale, and all the nerves, they get accumulated over there. That is why it's called as conus medullaris. Conus medullaris, that is, the cone is formed and all the nerves get in the form of bunch. It becomes like a horse tail. Now over there, the presentation will be, there will be saddle anesthesia. There will be a bilateral motor weakness as well as will be there on both the limbs, but there will be saddle anesthesias will be there, and bowel and bladder loss will be there, because perineal area will be involved. So now you can understand the kind of presentation is very different. So the clinical presentation will tell me what is the level of the lesion at the level of the cord, how much infection is, or how much inflammation, or how much damage is done to the cord. The kind of clinical presentation the patient gives us help us to know whether there is complete or whether it is a partial lesion of the cord takes place, whether it is in the form of central cord syndrome, anterior cord syndrome, Brown-Sequard syndrome, cauda equina syndrome. Fine. So this you can see, in complete cord syndrome, there's all motor and sensory modalities are completely involved, and it is an acute and a severe and necrotizing kind of a myelitis. Whereas Brown-Sequard syndrome, as we have seen, hemisection of the cord, there is dysfunction of corticospinal tract and dorsal columns, and ipsilateral to the lesion, and spinothalamic tract lesions is contralateral to the lesion. As you understand, the tracts are dorsal columns are they are ipsilaterally running, and the contralateral tracts they are decussating at that point. So then there is also conus medullaris syndrome, as we have already discussed. Now what kind of this presentation the patient will say? The patient will give us a presentation of, there is a band like numbness around my trunk. I am feeling a band like pressure around my trunk. Or bladder sphincter case, I am finding very difficulty in holding the urine, or difficulty in retaining the urine. Incontinence is the complaint, or there will be a typical loss. I am not able to feel anything around, a band like sensory loss, a horizontal level sensory loss. He can say pyramidal kind of a weakness will be there, one side loss of basically the lower limb is more involved as compared to the upper limb in transverse myelitis. And there will be contralateral spinothalamic tract, pain and temperature sensation on the opposite side will be lost. Fine. So these kind of a presentation will give us an idea. Contralateral spinothalamic loss, pyramidal tract loss, unilateral posterior column loss, and there will be horizontal level sensory loss or bladder function and band-like sensation. This kind of a presentation should give you an idea that this is going towards a cord-like lesion. These are features of cord-like lesion. Fine. And we should think about this. There is a presentation, it is going towards cord-like lesion. Now progression, how this progression takes place, it is a very rapid condition, like it happens within 4 hours. The person, when he comes to us, it is like within minutes and hours the acute stage is there. That is, ekdam there is a sensory loss or a band-like sensation, I am not able to feel anything around. So he will say, and within hours, and its subacute stage is within days, that is, it maximum goes up till 21 days. So you can say within 3 weeks the person has completed his subacute stage. The presentation is very rapid within days. And what will be the clinical symptoms? It will have, the person will have motor, sensory, autonomic, and a pain. 4 symptoms are there. Now motor symptoms is depending upon which level the cord is being affected. Fine. Whether it is C3 to C5, If the cervical level is involved, then there will be a paresthesis there. C4 level is involved especially, then diaphragm is affected. The person will have respiratory problem also, difficulty in breathing. If T1, T2 level is involved, then paraplegic presentation will be there, and it will be moreover as a UMN paraplegic like type. And if it is L5S1, there will be presentation of UMN and LMN type of a lower limb will be more involved as compared to the upper limb, and bowel and bladder urine retention will take place, and there will be a spinal shock. Now, when this infection takes place, when the person comes in acute injury or acute stage within hours, like there is a burning sensation around, I'm not able to feel my legs, within that 4 hours or within that day, the person or the spine goes into shock. Whenever the infection takes place at the spine, first protection is it goes into shock. That means the tone reduces, or there is the tone basically it becomes atonic. The spine goes into shock. That means there will be areflexia, tone will be reduced, and there will be no motor function, no sensory function around. So you can see all the reflexes will be gone, all the sensation will be gone, all the motor function will be gone, and there will be atonia, flaccid paralysis all around, and of course there will be no atonic bladder will be there. The bladder and bowel will be atonic. So this happens whenever the infection takes place. Now, as soon as the infection has been catered or first dose of corticosteroids are been given, then what happens is the body recovers and it comes into the stage of spasticity. After atonia, it increase in tone takes place. That is, there is an increase in tone. Now, whenever there is an increase in tone, then the features of UMN come. Now, what is LMN and UMN? LMN is lower motor neuron kind of a symptoms, and UMN is upper motor neuron kind of a features. Now, what is LMN and UMN? In LMN, let me tell you, in LMN, there will be atonia. Atonia means lack of tone. There will be no tone, there will be flaccidity. There will be no reflexes. Hyporeflexia will be there. Fine. The normal reflex, when knee reflex, ankle reflex has been checked, there will be no response to deep tendon reflexes, or the abdominal reflexes will also be lost. Now, what else will be there? There will be in the kind of fasciculations will be there. Fasciculations is the muscle is dying off, or muscle is not having that power to produce a movement. Fasciculations will be seen. The next thing which is important is there will be atrophy of the muscles which will be seen. Fine. And what happens in UMN is the tone increases. Now, whenever the tone increases, now after the spinal shock, there will be hyperexcitability or towards, or all the gamma excitability takes a gamma motor neurons are more excited or are given more firing, so that it starts functioning again. Because of the spinal shock, initially all the firing to the lower limb is stopped at the level of spinal cord level. So what happens is, once the spinal shock is over, there will be hyperexcitability of the gamma motor neurons, and once there is an hyperexcitability of the gamma motor neurons, as well as the instructions from the cord or from the brain also to produce the movement, there will be excitability from the brain as well as at the level of the cord also, which results in increase in tone. Now, there will be spasticity, increase in tone, increase in reflexes, hyperreflexia will take place. Then there will be, what is important is herein there is, since the tone is so much increased, the person will not be able to move his limb, and there will be disuse atrophy. Disuse atrophy will take place. There is a typical sign which is called as plantars as extensors Babinski's positive, where when we try to stroke the sole of the foot, the lateral end of the sole of the foot has been stroked through a brush or through a conical piece. Then what happens is there will be a extensor. Ideally there should be an extensor response. There is an extensor response, and ideally, and fanning and extensor response is an ideal response, and there will be this response is positive. Babinski sign is there. So what is coming back to this, so there will be a presentation of first initially there will be a spinal shock and followed by a UMN and LMN kind of a feature. Both features will be seen here. First, there will be a kind of a spinal shock where there will be no response, and then spasticity set in, and then the tone increases. Now, in sensory loss, there is paresthesias, numbness, and altered temperature sensations. That is, there will be, of course, numbness will be around the limbs, and there will be Lemreet sign is there. What is Lemreet sign is when the neck is flexed, when the person is lying on the bed, we basically flex the neck, and the patient says that he has a shock like feature, or a shock is passing through his whole body. So that is called as a Lemreet sign. It's a resistance to the neck flexion we feel, and there is a shock like feature to the whole lower limb takes place through the spine. That is called Lemreet sign. So these are the motor features. You can see there will be certain kind of a motor features that depending upon the level of cord. I will show you here also. Now if you can see here, this is the level of the cord. Can you see the cervical level, the thoracic level? The green is the thoracic level, the blue is the cervical level, purple is the lumbar level, and the sacral level. Can you see that? The sacral, bowel and bladder function. S2, that is pudendal nerve, is been involved. And the leg muscles, abdominal muscles, how are they involved? So any injury or any infection at the level of C4 will result in quadriplegia. C6 also quadriplegia, where the thoracic muscle has been saved. C4 where the thoracic muscle or respiratory muscle is involved. T6 level is a paraplegia, pure paraplegia, and L1 level is also a paraplegia. T6 the abdominal muscles will be involved, and L1 the abdominal muscles are saved. Herein you can see the main muscles, key muscles which have been involved, and what are the cord levels. So depending upon which cord the inflammation takes place, whether it's a C4, the muscles involved is diaphragm and shoulder elevators. C5, shoulder flexors, abductors, elbow flexors. C6, wrist extensors. C7, elbow extensors, that is triceps. C8, finger flexors and extensors are involved. T1, T6 upper trunk muscles, T7, T12 lower trunk muscles, L1, L2 hip flexors, L3 knee extensors, L4 ankle dorsiflexors, L5 toe extensors, and S1 to S5 is ankle plantar flexors with bowel and bladder responses. So these are the motor losses which takes place. Fine. Now coming back to it, so these are the motor losses. What are the sensory losses we see is paresthesias around this area, around the dermatomal area. Remember these were the myotomes which I have shown. Now I am telling you about sensory losses around the dermatome, depending upon which transverse section of the cord has been involved. Then Lemreet sign will be there. Fine. The other signs are autonomic dysfunction. The autonomic dysfunction is basically related to our bowel and bladder dysfunctions. That is, along with, of course, there will be hypertension and increased cardiac output, and GIT problems will be there. But herein I am just I have covered here is as a bowel and bladder dysfunction. That is urine incontinence, nocturia, night urination during night, urine retention, and urine incontinence. Is there bowel also urgency, immediate requirement of clearance of bowel, incontinent bowel, and retention of bowel, and sexual dysfunction is there. Pain, the pain over here is burning radicular pain, which is not tolerable pain, band like pain, as if kuch jakada hua hai, and tight and squeezing pain is there. Fine. So this is basically along with this. These are the typical features, clinical features: motor, sensory, autonomic, and pain. Fine. Now we see how the presentation will take place. Now the person will have a history of fever, or he may have a history of fever. Most of them have a history of fever, or whether he has a respiratory infection or a GIT infection, and it is called as in case of acute transverse myelitis, there is a progression or onset of spinal cord dysfunction is within 4 hours to 21 days. Within that, progression takes place. Within 4 hours, the presentation will be of any of the cords, whether it will be in the form of anterior cord, central cord, Brown-Séquard cord, conus medullaris, any cord syndrome presentation will be there. There will be spinal shock, initial, and there will be autonomic dysreflexia. As we have discussed, whenever this infection takes place, the body goes into spinal shock and there is autonomic dysreflexia. There's a loss of control of bowel and bladder, and then after that there will be pain. There's a pain, paresthesia, radicular pain in the legs, which can be bilateral, asymmetrical, unilateral, acute, subacute, progressive leg weakness. I have used all the words depending upon which kind of a spinal cord syndrome takes place or what kind of a cord presentation takes place. It can be bilateral, symmetrical, unilateral, contralateral, acute or subacute. Urine retention initially takes place and then it is followed by urine incontinence. Now, how in physical examination we see is we find fever, hypertension because there is autonomic dysreflexia takes place, so there's hypertension is there, tachycardia is there, meningeal sign can be seen, that is Lhemerit sign is seen. There will be, person will be on tenderness around the spine, the area which has been involved, the person will pinpoint and say that I am having tenderness here. And optic neuritis, the optic nerve, infection of the optic nerve is also seen. Now this pain which is happening over here is because of, this can be because of any of these reasons. The pain can be due to neuropathic, nerve is been involved, the nerve root is getting inflamed, so the pain is neuropathic. It is due to the dural inflammation, of course the dura has been involved. It can be because of the muscle spasm, because the motor dysfunction has happened, or it can be due to dysautonomia, that is bladder distension. This has happened, or it can be because of psychological stress also, because the person is not able, suddenly the person will not be able to move his leg within an hour. The person will say I am not able to feel my legs, and then he will say I am not able to move my legs. So this is called this is a psychological stress. And then there is demyelination of spinal cord, spinothalamic tracts, which happens. There will be altered sensation. Dysesthesia is altered sensation. A normal touch sensation is been appreciated as pin pricking sensation by the patient. So this aesthesias, this is because of the demyelination of the spinal cord. So these all result in pain. This all results in pain. Now, when we examine such kind of a person, other than tachycardia and systemic examination, what we see for ourselves is there is an increase. As a physiotherapist, we see as increase in tone. There will be increase in tone. There will be spasticity around, which can be symmetrical here, but more it is seen at the level of legs are more involved as compared to arms. Cervical level it is very less. It is more seen towards the lumbar and the at the sacral region. So you can see thoracic and the lumbar region it is seen. So reflexes are brisk, positive Babinski, as I have already discussed. Sensory ataxia. Sensory ataxia is the person is, again I have already explained you this in neurosyphilis, Tabes dorsal especially. There will be sensory ataxia. The leg, they will not have joint proprioception, so the joint position sense will be lost. So if the person starts walking, he will not be able to walk properly. He will stamp his foot while walking. So this will be sensory ataxia, as we will walk as a drunken sailor gait, with a drunken sailor gait. There will be loss of anal sphincter contraction. There will be bladder dilatation, and there will be residual voidal urine collection will be there. Of more than 100 ml urine collection will be there. So these are residual collection of urine, loss of anal sphincter, sensory ataxia, brisk Babinski signs, as well as DTRs, and of course there will be increase in tone, will all be seen in physical examination. Now, what do you see in investigation? Investigation is basically we go in for a CSF puncture, CSF analysis through lumbar puncture, and in which we try to see whether the cord, there will be increase in the number of WBC as and of course antigen antibody reactions or antibodies will be seen. IgG index is taken, pleocytosis is done, and serum analysis will tell us that there is neuromyelitis optica antibodies, whether there is any neuromyelitis optica antibodies are present or not. MRI will help us of the cord, will tell us really about the area which has been involved, the discoloration or demyelination of the area or the cord which is involved. Now there is another very important thing. One is called transverse myelitis, one is called as Guillain-Barré syndrome or polyneuropathy. Now, there are two different things over here. You have to be very much clear about these two things. It is polyneuropathy. Polyneuropathy is that is multiple nerves involvement takes place, whereas in transverse myelitis is depending on which level, the which transverse, which width wise the cord is been involved, the clinical features come. But in Guillain-Barré syndrome, it is all the peripheral nerves are involved. Fine. So it is an ascending type of weaknesses takes place, that it starts from the lower limb, then it involves, it is ascending and symmetrical. The lower limb will be first involved, then it will ascend towards the pelvic area, then it will ascend towards the upper limb, and then it will go up to the respiratory level. So it is an ascending type. Herein you find in transverse myelitis there is no ascending features. It is according to the cord features are there. So our motor features, our sensory features are cord features, where there Guillain-Barré syndrome, where the features are ascending type. It also presents the same. There will be, of course, mixed features. LUMN and LMN, both features will be there. And herein you see that it is an ascending kind of a features are more there. Both are basically having will have spinal shock. There will be a spinal shock where there will be a flaccid stage, and then followed by an UMN signs will be there. Then this is because of there will be total loss of bowel and bladder dysfunction. Herein there will be, of course, bowel bladder dysfunction and followed by hyperreflexia, that is increase in tone. Fine. And cranial nerve, there is no involvement of cranial nerve in transverse myelitis. Herein there will be facial nerve and extra ocular muscles will be involved in Guillain-Barré syndrome. And herein we hardly go in for any peripheral nerves examination. EMG and NCB will not show any change in any nerve, sensory nerve action potential or motor nerve action potential, wherein here you see there will be change in the sensory nerve as well as motor nerve action potential takes place, because it is a polyneuropathy, multiple nerves will be involved. Whereas in MRI scan you will find herein demyelination signs at the cord. Here also you will find certain demyelination signs will be there. Here there will be CSF or increase in the IgG index will be seen, and there will be an increase in elevated protein. So there is a different kind of a presentation. GBS is different, whereas transverse myelitis is different. It gives a cord like symptoms, and herein it gives an sudden ascending like features are there, that it starts from the lower limb, then the trunk, and then the upper limb, and it is symmetrical. Fine. It is called as the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Now, what is the diagnostic criteria of transverse myelitis when such kind of a features come? So, there is a certain diagnostic criteria. These are 5 criteria which need to be met. Bilateral sensory motor and autonomic spinal cord dysfunction. That means there will be involvement of sensation, motor, and some autonomic dysfunction which are representing to a cord. First thing. Then there will be clearly defined sensory level. At one level you will find when there is a sensory examination which takes place, we basically go in for an ASIA scale, which you will learn at the master level. But herein we try to see the sensory level. Beyond that level or above that level, all the sensation will be normal, and below that level the sensory loss will be there. So you will be clearly able to differentiate the sensory level. Fine. And there will be the progression is within hours to 21 days of the onset. All the symptoms will come within the 21 days. That should be sign. And there will be CSF, there will be pleocytosis, elevated IgG index. MRI will show cord enhancement, lesions will be there. All the investigations they will be responding towards, any of these investigations will come positive. So there is a rapid progression, should be a clear sensory level, there will be bilateral sensory motor and autonomic dysfunction of a cord level, and there exclusion of any kind of post-radiation, post-tumoric, post-neoplastic or post-vascular cause. You should rule out all this. There should not be any neoplastic, post-radiation, compressive or vascular cause. So when this is there, it is becomes a diagnostic criteria for transverse myelitis. Now, what kind of a treatment we give? We give corticosteroids, and plasma exchange is done basically, so that because there is an antibodies which have been autoimmune antibodies have been formed, so we need to replace the plasma, so that it is the antibodies have been removed from, and of course disease specific treatment is always given. Fine. Now, what is the prognosis of this? Now, the most idiopathic, it is almost, it remains idiopathic transverse myelitis, and recovery takes place within 1 or 3 months, mostly one third of the patients recover. And it is only with 40% of the patient the disability remains. And sometimes what happens is that there is a rapid onset paraplegia and spinal shock takes place. So if there is a rapid onset paraplegia and spinal shock, then poorer outcome is there. So we can say that 30% full recovery, for 30% there will be partial recovery, and then there will be complete paraplegia continue, that is disability also continues. 30% is the recovery rate. Now this is all about transverse myelitis. So what we have learned in this, what we have learned is we covered if you can see, we have covered the, let us just revise what we have seen. We have seen the definition. It is the inflammation of the cord, and which has got motor, sensory and autonomic, and pain. There is a function dysfunction, and it can affect all males and females, and 1 to 8 new cases per million per year is there. All age groups are involved. The causes can be 3: direct invasion at the level of the cord, viral infection of the cord takes place. Second, it can be post-infectious GIT or respiratory tract infection within 3 to 8 weeks, or it can be an autoimmune response, which the person is already suffering from SLE or MS. Then he may end up in getting this condition. Now, it can be a complete or an incomplete one. Complete is said when 3 vertebral columns are being involved. That means there will be complete cord lesion is there at the 3 levels, where there will be total motor, sensory and splinter dysfunction will take place. Where when less than 3 cords vertebral segments are involved, there will be limited track symptoms will be there. Incomplete loss, sensory and motor loss will be found. So this is how we differentiate between complete and incomplete injury. Now, if it is an acute partial transverse myelitis, that is less than 1 or 2 vertebrae involved, so it is mild and moderate kind of an injury, which is post-infectious. Whereas if it is longitudinal and extensive transverse myelitis, term is given when all the 3 vertebral column are involved and symmetrical weakness is there, severe variety, and the person may have an infection or a NMO spectrum disorder himself. Fine. So this was the how we can see the scan. So what were the cord? We discussed about complete cord, Brown-Séquard syndrome, conus medullaris and anterior cord syndrome, how the presentation will take place. The presentation will be like band-like sensation or bladder dysfunction, horizontal level sensory loss, unilateral posterior column loss, pyramidal weakness and contralateral spinal thalamic loss. Tract lesion will be there. So the progression is within hours to 21 days, within over acute stages within minutes to hours, and subacute stage goes up to weeks. There will be certain kind of motor, sensory, autonomic and pain features. Motor depending upon which level it has been involved. Fine, whether it is quadriplegic, paraplegic, whether it will be UMN, LMN or spinal shock. Paresthesia will be there or Lehmrit sign will be positive. Autonomic urgency, incontinency will be there, as well as pain, burning, band-like sensation or tight squeezing sensation is there. This is how this is the myotome representation, and this is how the presentation will take place depending upon the level of injury. C4 with respiratory involvement, C6 quadriplegia without respiratory involvement, T6 abdominal involvement along with paraplegia, L1 there is only paraplegia without any abdominal involvement. So depending on this, the muscle charting is there. Now along with the features, these are the clinical presentation the patient will come up with. Fine. And what are the physically what we will see? Tenderness, spinal meningeal irritation sign, tachycardia, hypertension and will be there. Pain is because of many reasons we have already discussed. Now when we check it, or when we physically examine, there will be increase in tone, there will be hyperreflexia, there will be sensory ataxia, there will be splinter dysfunction, there will be loss of anal sphincter and there will be residual volume on the bladder, residual urine collection in the bladder. And investigation will be CSF examination with and MRI, which will help us to tell the site of the lesion. CSF will tell us more about the level of IgG index as well as pleocytosis. Fine. This slide is very important. It helps us to know differentiate between Guillain-Barré syndrome and transverse. However, the presentation of the patient is same, but there are certain distinguishing points which should be kept in mind when diagnosing a case with transverse myelitis or Guillain-Barré syndrome. There is certain kind of a diagnostic criteria which we follow before we label the patient as a case of TM. We have got corticosteroids, plasma exchange, and disease specific treatment for this. And the prognosis is 30% fully recover, 30% partial recovery, and 30% with complete paraplegia. Fine. um, I hope you have you need to go through this topic thoroughly. I have just given you a brief outline around transverse myelitis, and we are open for any discussions in the comment section. Thank you.